Food security concerns rise as Ebola takes an economic toll in West Africa. Police in Kenya seize explosives and arrest over 100 suspects following raids on mosques in Mombasa. And the new Hunger Games movie sparks a protest and a ban in Thailand. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. The World Bank says it expects the economic impact of the Ebola outbreak on the sub-Saharan economy to cost between $3 and $4 billion. But that is well below a previous worst-case scenario of $32 billion. Some economists, however, are painting a gloomy picture, warning that the disruption to regional markets and trading is considerable. Henry Ridgewell reports from London.
Potatoes are the lifeblood of the economy in Timbi, Madina, Central Guinea. But the Ebola epidemic is strangling the industry. Borders with neighbouring countries have been closed.
There are no plans to open the borders, and the internal market is not booming. Everything's blocked. So how long do we stock products for? And what price will we be able to sell them at in the future?
In the Sierra Leonean capital, Freetown, the prices of basic goods are rising.
Most of
our bulk buyers who come from the provinces are not coming to town due to Ebola because their areas have been quarantined. So the prices right now are very high.
In Sierra Leone, 80% of the population works in agriculture, and there has been a sharp decline in activity, says Professor Jonathan Leap, Executive Director of the International Growth Centre at the London School of Economics.
The food prices have not shown the kind of spikes that would have happened had there been shortages. What's not so good as a picture is what's happening to the level of trading and employment in these markets. There's been a 69% drop in rice traders. That's suggesting that employment and trading and buying and selling activity is dropping quite significantly.
Multinational companies are also hit. The British extraction company London Mining was already suffering from plunging iron ore prices. Several workers were moved from the company's mine in Sierra Leone because of Ebola. This month, the firm declared bankruptcy. The mining sector is vital to Sierra Leone's economy, says Alhaji Jallo, president of the Sierra Leone Importers Association.
Importation has been grounded to a halt. In fact, exportation is now virtually zero. Our mining companies has closed down, most of them.
The assistance group International SOS advises multinational companies operating in Ebola-hit regions. Dr. Katie Geary, the group's medical director, says it's not always necessary for companies to stop operating.
What we're trying to get them to balance is the tension between business continuity and delivering the key economic requirements for that company versus the safeguarding of their employees, identifying the key people out there, making sure there's education, making the work environment as safe as possible in the context of Ebola.
When the epidemic is brought under control, says Professor Leap, the international community must help revive the region's economy.
These countries will have a great need to relaunch their economies. And part of that means being very open and supportive of increasing international trade, but also taking measures that will enhance and kickstart domestic trade.
The human cost of Ebola is clear, more than 5,000 deaths to date. Analysts warn the international community must help avert an economic disaster. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Well, time is of the essence in identifying and treating those infected with the Ebola virus. That was the key message of a special program on the disease held on Wednesday and sponsored by the Voice of America. In a town hall meeting on VOA Straight Talk Africa, hosted by Shaka Sali, several experts discussed the urgency in identifying and treating Ebola. Dr. Rick Sekra, the third U.S. citizen to contract Ebola while working in Africa, said when he experienced the first symptoms, he was immediately tested and airlifted to the U.S. for treatment. With modern medical care at a hospital in Nebraska, he survived and says he was very grateful for the swift response. While Kenya's coastal city of Mombasa is calm but tense today after police arrested scores of people Wednesday and recovered weapons during raids at 3 mosques that they say have links with extremist groups. Kenyan police say they found explosives at 3 mosques in Mombasa on Wednesday and arrested 109 people on suspicion they were undergoing militant training in the latest in a series of raids in the port city. Kenya is looking to break up Islamist militant networks it blames for a series of attacks in the capital Nairobi as well as along its Indian Ocean coastline, saying many of the recruits were inspired by Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda-linked Somali group. Police raided 2 mosques on Monday, seizing weapons and literature that they said was evidence of militant activity. The following day, a group of youths with machetes and knives killed 3 people. Richard Ngatia, a local police chief, said investigators on Wednesday found 3 machetes at Mombasa's Mina Mosque and a grenade, while 2 10-liter petrol bombs and a bomb detonator were uncovered at Swafa Mosque.
We recovered a hand grenade, some petrol bombs. We recovered a bomb detonator. We recovered a booster. We also recovered paraphernalia associated with training in jihadism.
Police have arrested 376 people so far during the raids, which started on Sunday, but 91 were later released for lack of evidence. Prosecutors said 158 would be charged with being members of Al-Shabaab. Police said they were still considering what to do with the other detainees. Al-Shabaab killed at least 67 people in a gun and grenade raid on a Nairobi shopping mall last September, saying it was revenge for attacks on its fighters by Kenyan troops in Somalia. Insecurity plagues East Africa's biggest economy, and attacks on the past year on the coast and in the capital have prompted Western nations to issue travel warnings, hitting the tourism industry, which is a big source of hard currency. Well, for more on Kenya's efforts to break up the militant networks that it blames for a series of attacks on its coast, we're joined via Skype from Nairobi by Mohammed Yusuf. Mohammed, first tell us what has been the reaction, especially in Mombasa and even throughout the country, particularly from Muslim leaders.
It seems the whole country, actually, people are really shocked with what has been found in these 3 mosques. But again, it is not the first time we're seeing police storming mosques. In February, they stormed Musa Mosque. But so far, we're not having much reaction other than from right activists who are calling for the release of these youths. But the voice that now is lacking in the country is by the Muslims community, Muslim leaders. They've been meeting the last 3 days, and they haven't yet spoken to the media or given any statement so far. But we spoke to some of them, and they're saying that the whole thing at the coast and the issue of terrorism in the country is really frustrating. It's becoming repetitive. More people are being killed. Pro-Al-Shabaab are being killed. At the same time, you have some clerics who are moderate towards killed.
Yes.
But the whole thing, basically, what they're saying is really, really frustrating at the coast and what is happening in the country.
Now, Mohammed, how have these raids and also the previous killings affected the atmosphere in the city of Mombasa, especially between Muslims and non-Muslims?
The fear is there, and it's not just because the fear is there now because the police have stormed mosques in Mombasa. It's been there for the last 3 years, and we've seen situations where some youths or some men and women are attacked in the streets the last 6 months. And again, at the same time, there's also that fear that with this security crackdown, that some Muslim youths will be arrested and maybe they will be labeled terrorists. So depends on which side of the community you speak to, but every side there's that fear. Some Muslim community, they fear police will harass them, but at the same time there's that fear among the Christian community or some Kenyans at the coast that these youth will revenge and some of them will be attacking them in the streets. And now we have situations where people are avoiding certain streets, certain neighborhoods, and we also, this afternoon we had reports of people moving out from these areas, particularly in Majengo, where you have Musa Mosque and areas around Sakina.
Okay, Mohammed, we'll keep monitoring the situation. Thanks a lot for reporting excellently. Well, Mohammed Yusuf reporting live via Skype from Nairobi, Kenya. A documentary film called Big Men tells the story of a small Texas oil company backed by New York investment banks looking for oil in a deep water zone off the coast of Ghana. Now, the successful project has transformed the nation's energy industry. One of the key players was a native of Ghana who now lives in Houston and is using some of his earnings to improve health care in his homeland. VOA's Greg Flakers has the story.
The man speaking in this clip from the documentary film Big Men is George Yao Owusu, who assisted Dallas-based Cosmos Energy in obtaining permission to drill an exploratory oil well off the coast of Ghana. There were a number of twists and turns in the story, including a change of government and an investigation of Cosmos and Owusu for allegedly bribing government officials. The investigation was ultimately dropped, and Cosmos succeeded where many other companies had failed. Owusu says he's happy with what the oil boom has done for Ghana.
So it's been nothing but positive for the country, and I'm glad that I was a part of it.
He says Ghana has gone from producing negligible amounts of oil to producing more than 100,000 barrels a day, providing the nation with development funds and many well-paying jobs.
Ghana would see.
This boom was foreseen by Cosmos Energy's chief operating officer, Jim Musselman, when he visited Ghana in 2007.
We hope that we can serve you well, and we hope we lead to a lot of prosperity for this country.
Big Men director Rachel Boynton says this scene captured a moment of truth.
A lot of people in the oil business, and certainly the people that I found, do want to have a positive effect in the countries where they work. I think that's sincere.
George Owusu says the film provides an accurate view of how the deep water drilling project came about.
We were busy doing our work, and here somebody's following you with a camera, and we didn't even know that it was going to come out the way it did. I was very, very pleased to see the final product.
The oil venture made Owusu a multimillionaire, but he's not forgotten his humble beginnings and the many children threatened by disease in Ghana.
I want to make sure that so many curable diseases, which are easily cured in the United States, make people go blind in Ghana and other parts of Africa. Make sure that at least you can help those people.
He's funding a number of projects in Ghana, including a new hospital in collaboration with Sanford Health, a Sioux Falls, South Dakota-based organization that already operates a number of clinics there.
It's going to be a $10 million hospital, and we have already committed $2 million out of it.
Thanks to the project he helped develop in Ghana, George Owusu has now retired from the energy industry and has become a full-time philanthropist. Greg Flakes, VOA News, Houston.
U.S. President Barack Obama is poised to make a major announcement about immigration late Thursday. He plans to sign executive orders that do not require congressional approval, granting millions of undocumented immigrants a reprieve from deportation. VOA's Caroline Presutti reports from the White House.
Illegal immigration burst to the forefront earlier this year when thousands of undocumented children from Central America crossed the U.S. border. Thousands of other children born in this country saw an undocumented parent deported.
Just please stop the deportation now.
Democrats and Republicans have bickered over immigration reform. The Senate passed a bill last year, but the House didn't bring it up for a vote. Since Congress didn't act, President Obama says he will. Thursday evening, the president will announce he's taking executive action to give up to 5 million undocumented immigrants a reprieve from deportation. He took to Facebook with an appeal to the American people.
I'm going to be announcing here from the White House some steps that I can take to start fixing our broken immigration system.
A Wall Street Journal NBC survey shows nearly half of Americans, 48%, oppose solving immigration through executive orders. And Republicans don't agree either, like Senator John Cornyn of Texas.
The president's going to tell the people who've been waiting patiently in line, playing by the rules, get in the back of the line. I'm going to put millions of people ahead of you in front of the line who have not played by the rules.
An executive order is not unprecedented. Presidents George H.W. Bush and Ronald Reagan used executive orders for immigration. But analysts say the issue was not as contentious as it is now. George Washington University professor Matthew Dallek teaches political leadership.
I think that there is genuine anger and even outrage on the part of a lot of Republicans at what the president is doing. And that, yes, it's hard to see a path where but again, even if Obama did not do this, it's still hard to see a path where they come together on comprehensive bipartisan reform.
White House spokesman Josh Earnest says Mr. Obama believes he's within his constitutional rights to bypass Congress with an executive order.
The president often says, that as president of the United States, only the tough decisions actually reach his desk. This might be the one exception.
Nearly 2 years ago, President Obama called for immigration reform at a Las Vegas school, where 2 out of 3 students are Hispanic.
Thank you.
He'll return to the same school Friday to detail his plans. At the White House, Carolyn Persutti, VOA News.
Well, VOA will carry President Obama's address to the nation on immigration on radio and the internet at voanews.com beginning at 0100 UTC Friday. You don't want to miss the president's important announcement, and so be sure to tune in at 0100 UTC Friday. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, we'll have our health report with Lenore Mudu. Stay with us.
Survives the virus. I am Dr. Conde Greaves. Many survivors return home to their villages only to face stigma based on fear and ignorance. We must fight against stigma and welcome Ebola survivors back into our communities. They are no longer contagious and pose no threat to you. Thousands of orphan children also need your support. Imagine losing your mother and father to Ebola. Their tragedy is often compounded by rejection and isolation when they return home. This is wrong. They are not sick. We must welcome orphan children back into our communities. They have suffered enough. We must also respect our healthcare workers. Many have given their own lives so that others may have a fighting chance. Learn the facts about Ebola. Knowledge is life.
Well, it's time for our Africa 54 Health Report, and joining us now is health correspondent Lenore Mudu. Hello, Lenore.
Hello, Vincent. The 2014 Access to Medicine Index was just released. It says there has been some improvements, including various means of charging developing countries for products, but it also says corruption and insufficient disclosure of existing patents continue to plague the industry. The index is compiled by the Access to Medicine Foundation every 2 years and independently evaluates the world's top 20 leading pharmaceutical companies' efforts to improving access to medicine in developing countries. The United Kingdom's GlaxoSmithKline ranks at number 1, while Japan pharmaceutical Takeda is number 20. Now joining us via Skype from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, for more on the subject is Wim Laravel, founder and CEO of the Access to Medicine Foundation. Mr. Laravel, welcome to the show.
Yes, hello, hi.
First of all, tell us about what is being taken in consideration during the evaluation process.
So the question, can you repeat the question?
What is being taken in consideration during the evaluation process?
Yes, well, what's very important is that we measure something that the world agrees upon. It does not make sense to ask companies, from the World Health Organization, that they ask something different than, for example, the investors in London or something like Oxfam or Médecins Sans Frontières. What's very important that we measure something that the world wants from companies, that the world reasonably...
What does the world want from companies? What does the world want?
Well, for example, that people in Africa and people in Southeast Asia have access to medicine. That people can afford to have medicine, and not that they cannot afford it because of high prices or that they can't use the patents. It's very important that companies not only bring a product on the market, but also organize that also the poorest part of the population have access to the medicine.
So over the years, this is the fourth time this index is being put out. What has been significant this time around, speaking about progress and even challenges?
Yes, well, maybe the first important thing is if we don't know what these companies are doing, they can't make progress because we don't know. When I started in 2008 to find out if this was possible, companies were not so willing to cooperate. Only a few companies were giving us some data. We realized that after 4 indexes, now these 20 biggest companies give us all data, well, very much data, not everything, unfortunately, but they really are very much more transparent than ever before. That's true.
Okay, Mr. Laravel, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
And that was Wim Laravel. He is founder and CEO of the Access to Medicine Foundation. Now in Mali, President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta visited an Ebola facility at the Kouroumale border post with Guinea on Tuesday as authorities in the country step up their efforts to fight the virus. They are trying to trace hundreds of people linked to confirmed and probable Ebola victims in an effort to control its second Ebola outbreak. An initial batch of contacts linked to a 2-year-old from Guinea who died of Ebola last month were close to the end of their 21-day quarantine period when Mali confirmed the second separate batch of cases this week. There have been at least 4 more confirmed Ebola cases in this second episode, all linked to an imam who entered Mali from neighboring Guinea and died late last month with Ebola-like symptoms that were not recognized. Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta says authorities are taking the disease seriously.
This is a war against the Ebola virus, and like all wars, it affects every part of life. You see the people here, this is not just a coincidence. It is a matter of national security. National defense concerns everybody, including myself, Commander-in-Chief of Mali's Army's forces.
Now we are at war, and any Malan who doesn't understand that is not a patriot.
President Boubacar Keïta has also urged the World Health Organization and health services in Mali and neighboring states to step up a permanent information exchange to improve awareness about public health and hygiene. Now, efforts are underway in Sierra Leone for safe burial practices for Ebola victims. Alimami Cissé is part of a team of 12 getting ready to conduct safe burials for suspected Ebola victims in Sierra Leone. The disease has killed more than 5,000 people in West Africa alone. Cissé says people are now more aware about how the virus spreads and that it remains active even in dead bodies.
People are now cooperating compared to before, and they are ready for us to take their dead. At first, I was afraid to do this work, but as I know how to protect myself, I'm no longer frightened to do the work.
Despite the safer burial procedures, the bureaucracy is creating confusion for some.
They've used me to bury a fitting burial on another person who said to be my sister, which is not. It's really paining me because I know who my sister was to me. Now they've just dumped her like a commoner, and she was a prayerful person.
The World Health Organization says they are working on faster and cheaper tests for Ebola, which currently doesn't have a cure. And that's our Africa Health Report for today. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, thank you very much, Lino, for joining us today. Be sure to watch for Lino Mudu every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54 for the latest on Africa Health. Now, it's time for a short break still to come on Africa 54. Celebrities stay silent in a new Ebola awareness PSA. We'll be right back.
at touch, looking for what is not missing. Yes, please.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Some of the world's biggest movie and music stars are taking a vow of silence to highlight the devastating effects of the Ebola epidemic. A-listers including Matt Damon, Morgan Freeman, Ben Affleck and Bono all appear in a completely silent video for musician Bono's One campaign. According to a press release, their silent stares highlight how the world waited for action to stamp out Ebola in West Africa and how we cannot wait to invest in the health sector to prevent similar tragedies in the future. The One campaign has also released an interactive Ebola response tracker which shows how much money countries have pledged, how much has actually been disbursed, and how many health workers and other contributions have been sent to affected countries. Next up.
Dirty Ella. Cinderella.
Are you all right, miss? What did he call you?
Never mind.
That is your first look at a trailer for an upcoming live-action version of Cinderella, starring Oscar-winning actress Cate Blanchett and Downton Abbey star Lily James. In the film, which retells the classic fairy tale story about a kind and beautiful young woman who is forced to do hard labor by an evil stepmother and two sisters, James stars as the title character, while Blanchett, who won a Best Actress Oscar last year for Blue Jasmine, plays her stepmother, Lady Tremaine. The film is scheduled for release on March 13, 2015. And finally, a theater chain in Thailand cancels showings of Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. Well, the latest installment in the franchise is becoming a rallying point for critics of Thailand's ruling junta, which has attracted the attention of Thai authorities. Police have so far detained 6 protesters after they made the three-fingered salute of resistance popularized in the worldwide hit series. Now, the salute is one of the several forms of protest that has emerged since martial law was declared, banning gatherings of more than 5 people. And that is what is trending today. And that is our show. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. If you have heard American English, maybe you've heard this phrase.
Burned out?
Does this mean something was on fire and is now out? Or maybe it means totally tired. See if you can tell. Listen.
Sarah got so burned out, spending so much time volunteering at the hospital.
She's really going to need a vacation.
Totally.
Burned out means you are very tired. It means you have lost interest in something. That is because you have done too much of the same thing. It is like a light bulb that has stopped shining because all of its energy is used up inside. Now it's your turn to think of ways to use burned out. And that's English in a Minute.